Well, you know what? It's hard to see you. Our radio audience can't see you at all. But for us on the YouTube, Twitch side, it's hard to see you. You're wearing camouflage. Like, are you really there? Are you
No,
really
I'm
there?
not. No, I'm not. I'm not here. No,
All
I just
right.
blend in with wherever I go.
Well, you are that guy. You got that Howie Mandel look to you, and the fact that
Aerodynamic.
you are aerodynamic, my friend.
That's
All right,
right.
all right, let's get right to it, my friend, because we got a
Yes.
lot of topics to cover here
Right.
over the next little bit of the on the UFO report here. Let's start off with a little bit of news because this one just isn't going away, and I'm going to tell you right now, this one still upsets me, Tim. Still upsets me. I cannot shake the anger that I have for NASA playing us like fools,
Right.
saying that they're getting into UFOs. What's new in this, man?
Well, there's a couple of new aspects happening. And so, first off, there's America's best astrophysicists are taking UFOs seriously now. And so, UFOs or UAPs, now that they're known as UAP, right, as they're more decorously called, have been in the news a lot lately. And so, just as of last month, the House Intelligence Committee's Counterintelligence and Counterproliferation Subcommittee conducted their public hearings on more than 140 sightings by military pilots over the past 20 years, right? And so they were discovering that these UAPs were flying in a manner of inexplicable ways, such as bobbing, weaving, hovering, diving, changing direction with head snapping speed that would produce potentially deadly G forces to any living being, or at least any living human being inside. So now there's a third agency coming on board and getting involved in the effort to explain UAPs, and NASA itself, believe it or not, is at the head of that. And so, as Bill Nelson, the head of NASA, announced June 9th, it's launching its own investigation. And so, beginning in the fall, to get to the bottom of the UAP mystery, the effort will be led by astrophysicist David Spergel and the president of the Simons Foundation in New York City, and previously the chair of the astrophysics department at Princeton University in Princeton, New Jersey. And then Daniel Evans, the assistant deputy associate administrator for the research of NASA's Science Mission Directorate. And he will serve as NASA's official responsible for orchestrating the study. So this budget is slated at about $100,000, and the study is going to kick off and run for 9 months. This is going to analyze all of the available data that they currently have and first-hand accounts, all of the first-hand accounts amassed so far by NASA, and consult both with military and civilian experts for their analysis of this evidence. So the space agency is open to any and all interpretations of the data through its setting a high bar for at least one. However, in a statement from NASA, they're still sticking by their original statement that they've always had, that there is no evidence and that there is no evidence that UAPs are extraterrestrial in origin. But again, as we know, I see you shaking your head, and as we know, the absence of evidence, of course, is not evidence of absence, right? And NASA officials acknowledge that as and anything is possible. And so they're going to follow the findings wherever they may point.
Mm. So
Right.
basically, what they are doing for our audience, who is actually a lot smarter than what they are saying, they're taking $100,000, which is a drop in the bucket for any type of study. It's basically, a couple of lunches at Beverly Hills in order to study unidentified aerial phenomena. Tim, I I don't care how much they're name dropping and which scientists are going to be looking into this. They're treating us like fools.
Right. Right. I understand your skepticism. And again, we're going to have to look at NASA's history and the supporters that they've had, such as SETI. They're kind of on board in that world of skeptics. But again, they have in the past, and as we've seen, really taken advantage of some of the astronauts they've put in space by quieting them down and not letting them talk about some of the experience they potentially had. And so I find that really a kind of telling story as to what is to potentially come with this quote unquote research that they've already quoted as saying that there's no evidence for. So it sounds like they've already made their mind up that there is no evidence. But yet our history shows and our astronauts show that may not be the case.
I have been working over the last couple of weeks very quietly with Darcy Weir on a new documentary. I've been doing the voiceovers for him.
Interesting.
And it's about NASA and UFOs. And I was doing voiceover work yesterday for him on a couple pilots who flew NASA's X-15. One had an encounter at 314,000 feet above Earth. Okay?
Yeah.
This is where I get angry because we know they have the evidence. We know they have the astronauts. We know they have the pilots who have all encountered something. Never mind astronauts who, some of them have lived on the space station for 6 months to a year. I mean, in 2020, there was the Russian cosmonaut who literally filmed a boomerang out the window
With his cell phone, I believe. Is that correct?
with his cell phone.
Yeah.
And here we're supposed to believe and that this is brand new to NASA. You've been working in space for 70 years. Gemini had UFOs.
Dave, you
Apollo,
just said a magic number there, not to interrupt you, but 70 years. Isn't that interesting? That's also around the same time as Air Force. And, let's talk about Blue Book. I mean, these things must be all related. All of our astronauts are harvested from the Air Force. And then, kept under wraps, all the information under their military NDAs, excuse me. And so I think just like the point you're making here, this is just another expression of how it's going to be swept under the table. And just the fact that this is a third leg investigating, we already know that the two departments that they have set up could easily come up with the same this is a mundane answer. And then we would have a finalized answer confirmed by NASA that this is just something mundane. Let's hope not.
If the media would do their job and ask them, well, what about all of these astronauts who claim to have seen things in space? Because these are pretty smart men and women, Tim. Right. NASA doesn't choose dummies like myself or many others, okay, to head up to the International Space Station, or back in the day, head up in a rocket or a shuttle. They don't do that. You have to be the best of the best of the best of the best, pretty much like being a Navy SEAL. Okay, it's only the 1% of 1% that make that.
That's right. And up until recently, we provided seats on a lot of our missions to Russian cosmonauts. And to add to that, in today's news, Dmitry Rogozin, the head of Russia's Roscosmos space agency, has said Russian officials are conducting studies into UFO reports themselves. The space agency chief said that he's aware of unidentified flying objects accounts provided by pilots, and these reports often come back after test flights. Rogozin follows up and says in an interview with the Rozoya 24 news channel that 99.9% of all reports and or other physical phenomenon but also considered that we might be a subject to some extent of observation. So, furthering, NASA believes that the tools of the science discovery are powerful and apply here. And so Thomas Zurbuchen, also the administrator of science at NASA headquarters in Washington, says, "We have access to broad range of observations from Earth and from space, and this is the lifeblood of science inquiry. So we have the tools and the team who can help us improve our understanding of the unknown, and that's the definition of what science is, and that's what we do." So let me just highlight there that it sounds like part of the initial data collection is going to be coming from our own satellites. And so I find that just in this first sweep, what they'll be doing is narrowing down the sources that they can get to get data that will qualify as significant as a report. So I think that initializing and utilizing satellite data, that sounds like something new, Dave. Have you heard of that before?
I have heard of that because I think that's what the Galileo project wanted to try and accomplish with theirs, is use satellites in order to try and aim them towards areas that could be potential hotspots. Now, I may be wrong on that, okay, and I'm not afraid to be wrong on that, but I have heard that before, yes.
Right. And so obviously you'd have to be at some level of NASA or part of this team to get access to that kind of information, because we know just recently that UAPX reported that they were blocked off from the satellite data that they were purchasing from an independent satellite distributor of service, right? So what they got as far as data was just blacked out. They didn't receive information. And so some of this can be accessed, but some of it obviously is censored.
And here we go again. We're not supposed to be playing games, but we're playing games. And, you know, as we got about 90 seconds to go in this segment before we have to go to commercial break, Tim Seanor on the UFO Report tonight. I'm curious, you know, if anybody's been paying attention to Twitter, Representative Tim Burchett has been going absolutely nuts on NASA, exactly the same way we have. And, you know, I look at UFO Twitter, and as I said in my rant last week on the Dave 101, UFO Twitter, yes, we have to support NASA announcing they're getting into the game. But let's not get gushy with these morons. Okay? And right now they are acting like morons. And I don't like to, you know, call people names like that or anything of the sort. But Tim, there is a lot in NASA's closets and file folders and dresser drawers and you know, Dixie cups from the water cooler that are just hanging on out, and they're playing it like we're stupid. And
Right.
I'm sorry that I'm offended by that. I'm sorry to our audience that I keep ranting on this, but this one's really upset me, man.
Right. And
Really.
you bring up a really good point. They do have heaps of data and photographs and evidence, but let's also consider the fact that they have spent a lot of energy at censoring that. And so, even with this new investigation where they're encouraging people to look into these files of data, they may find so much censorship still that even NASA doesn't know what the real truth is anymore. And that is purely my own hypothesis, of course. I'm sure there's a lot of truth still there, but how much will get revealed?
That is the big one. Tim Seanor filling in on the UFO Report this week. When we come back, we're going to get into space news. General Motors and Lockheed Martin coming together? We'll find out about it when we return on Spaced Out Radio's UFO Report. Nice start, Tim. Good job.
Good stuff. D-Man. So good to see you, man.
Yeah, appreciate you, brother.
Oh, yeah. You know what? Actually, can we talk about something real quick here that you just mentioned about Tim Burchett, or do you want to wait?
Yeah, go right ahead.
I think that, you know what, we may be seeing this reaction at NASA publicly talking about this right now because of Tim Burchett, and that's just a knee-jerk reaction. I mean, the timing just is pretty much on point here. What do you think?
I love the way okay, I don't know Tim Burchett from the neighborhood fox that walks around in the green belt. All right. I know he's a politician. I don't know. I think he's Republican. You know, I'm not following his politics. I've talked to a number of people who say he's very set in his ways with certain things. I don't care about that. What I care about is what is he saying about the entire UFO portion. And everything that we at Spaced Out Radio have fought for to bring to the public. Hi, gorgeous Larry. Nice to finally have you here. Is what he is saying. Okay. Disclose, like even going back a few weeks ago, where, you know, right after the hearings, where he was on fire about after the hearings.
Yeah.
Okay. Where he's like, disclosure is let us know Roswell on forward. Everything. That's disclosure. We're just getting confirmation. And now you look at it with NASA, where he's basically saying to NASA, you know, you guys are an embarrassment for the way you're talking about this subject. I mean, basically, you got to realize NASA is calling their astronauts and their pilots fools.
Right.
Fools. And that's from Gemini, Apollo, the shuttles, right up to where we are today. They're calling them fools. And I love GYJ Overlander here. It's because people have seen NASA's BS for decades. Absolutely. Absolutely. And, you know, this is where I get pissed off at how foolish UFO Twitter is, because anytime somebody famous, LeBron James, could come out and say, you know, I had a good basketball game, me, his typical interview. Okay. By the way, saw a UFO and it was awesome. All of a sudden, everybody in UFO Twitter is going to be buying LeBron James gear because he said the words UFO or the letters UFO. All right. And that's the way it is. That's the way it is.
You are so right. And perhaps it goes the other way. You know, and everyone that's a LeBron James fan starts buying UFO t-shirts and stuffed aliens.
YJ says, I called this months ago when I saw Lou get hissy about alien disclosure and say, no, it's going to be nuts and bolts. YJ, I can tell you right now, that attitude is changing very, very quickly. Very quickly. And that's one of the reasons why Lou stepped away. Now you can take those words for what you say or however you want, but there is a much larger picture regarding that with Mr. Elizondo and his work for Space Force. And it's very, very interesting. I wish I could go.
I'm not prodding you.
I know. You know almost as much as I do, so.
I mean, it's exciting times. It really is. I feel lucky personally to be just alive, living these times with all of you.
It is pretty cool.
And thanks for having me on tonight, by the way, Dave. It's great. It's so much fun in SOR. This place is great.
Just look at it.
This is so awesome. I love what you've done in here. It feels much bigger.
Thank you. Here, let's go to the different camera angle if it'll ever start up, but it's not starting up.
Please, Dave.
No, it's not.
And I must say, when I play, you know, SOR in my kitchen, all the butter melts. When your voice floods the kitchen.
All right. A big thank you to Deco and Simon Dennis Dry Toast, who I just added on Twitter. I'm follower number 1, Cat Chaser, and Rob for the super chats. Thank you to everybody who's given us a thumbs up and all the veterans out there. Here we go.
Angle 2.
We rounded third. We're heading for home tonight on Spaced Out Radio. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. I want to remind you that if you missed most of this show or others, check out our free archives at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire. Check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. We continue on tonight with the UFO Report. Joining us, Tim Seanor, and he's filling in this week. And General Motors, not just wanting to build cars and trucks anymore, but apparently they're teaming up with Lockheed Martin on a lunar rover production?
That's right. That's right. GM and Lockheed are taking their lunar rover project to the commercial space market now. So the announcement marks the latest expansion for GM's Ultium technologies, which include batteries and the outside auto market. So last year, the companies announced a partnership to develop a lunar rover using the Ultium vehicle platform and the batteries, and use them for NASA. GM has also announced the partnerships to use or test the technology in electric motors for trains, boats, and other systems. So GM and Lockheed Martin said Thursday that they plan to produce an array of moon roving vehicles for commercial space missions and services powered by the automaker's electric vehicle battery technology. So the partnership to develop a lunar rover utilizing its Ultium vehicle platform and batteries for NASA will help in assessing projects following a bid for its upcoming Artemis missions to the moon. And so this is looking to me like they're taking their new technology and slapping it into a few different rover options that are going to work for different missions, not just with NASA, but with other independent corporations as well. But it sounds like some of the first ones are going to be going to the moon on Artemis.
Gee whiz. I mean, two things that I have to say about this. It's really nice that we're going to now pollute the moon with lithium-ion batteries. That portions of those batteries cannot be
Ultium. They're called Ultium batteries, and so, but yes, it'll still look like somebody's Duracells in the backyard.
So my question is, where are they finding the diesel generator to have the rechargeable plug-in for the electric vehicle? All right, that's my first question.
Right.
But number two, and as you can see, I'm not a big fan.
These are good questions. No, these are great questions. I might have a couple answers, but go ahead. I did do a little research, please.
Number two, why would anyone pair up with General Motors on this? General Motors can't figure out. No, but let me speak here for a second, okay?
Okay.
Let me speak here for a second. Because if anybody has ever owned a GM or Chevy truck, you know that after sitting in there for about 28 minutes, that your padding literally goes right down to the plywood that is holding the seat together. There is no comfort. There is no comfort in GM interior. There is no.
So you are currently talking to a suburban owner, and I gotta say, it's like floating in a cloud, my friend.
There is a difference between the $90,000 Suburban and the $55,000, $60,000 Sierra 1500.
Okay.
I'm serious.
I'm not gonna. We don't have to go here. We are
We
men,
can,
but we don't have to talk about trucks. We just don't have to. We can rise above the fray and not talk about trucks. But either way, interesting. Lockheed's on board, so I find that interesting. And so I think what it really is the GM is bringing the Ultium battery, which is actually something that they use in a lot of their electric vehicles on this planet. And so they're taking that tech and offering it to Lockheed. And I believe a lot of what the technology in this battery is going to express is a lot of rechargeability within the vehicle itself. So just the momentum of the vehicle is going to recharge the battery, and so it's one of those old school things where hopefully, it doesn't fail
well,
once it gets to the moon. And I'm sure they'll do plenty of testing.
realistically, too, that car will probably have some sort of, uh, you know, energy, solar energy panel on there in order to recharge the battery, which would
Yeah.
make sense because the moon does get a lot of sunlight each and every day. So, I mean, I could see that happening. Not a
There's a
problem.
dark side, though, a permanent dark side of the moon. So that's something to consider. But I'm sure they've done the math. I mean, they must have done the math, bud. They're doing it. So I think it's pretty interesting. And I also kind of see, Artemis is slated for what, 3 years from now, I think.
Something like that.
And so, they're going to have to scramble to get that technology together if they're only just starting to put the partnership together. So we'll see what happens next.
Well, they're still in test phases for Artemis, and they're
Right.
hoping that Artemis 1's moon mission launch options run through June 2023. So 1 year from now. 1 year from now, that we could see at the earliest something happening.
Interesting. Wow, they're really going to have to scramble if they want to get on board that. Um,
Oh,
and
that's going to be pushed back. There's going to be pushback there.
it is NASA. It is NASA. And so it's also interesting to think that they'll be going with some independent missions that are going to, I'm not sure if it's just the moon or, I mean, it sounds like they're designing lunar rovers, which says moon to me. But that also expresses that there could potentially be independent companies going there on their own. Is there something that Elon Musk isn't telling us? Question mark.
You know what? I don't know. I think there's a lot of trend. I mean, don't forget. I mean, 4 years ago, the two the Stars Academy was going to space. Everybody wants to go to space now. Everybody.
Absolutely. Right. And
It's a populist thing to do.
and you can do it with Virgin, right? Doesn't Virgin fly to space?
Yeah, for I think a couple million a seat right now.
Right. Right. I find that interesting. And so people are willing to spend a fortune to go to space, but not invest in UAP science. I find that distressing because this is really the most, in my personal opinion, and I think it's been expressed other places, that this is potentially the most important science mystery of our time and of our generation. And, it is intensely interesting to investigate. It's not a simple answer. It really isn't.
Very true. All right, third one. You got a film review
I do.
that you were checking on out. Alien abduction answers. What's this all about?
So a brief synopsis is the governments of the world cannot hide anymore that alien contact is happening. And this is a film of what, why, and how it is occurring. Right. And so it's a film produced and directed by a new friend of mine named John Yost. And he worked with Whitley Strieber very closely to produce this film containing a lot of abduction experiencers and their story. And he weaves his own personal experience throughout the film in a very elegant way. Tells a very I guess, scary or, potentially scary story that he has lived himself. So it was a really elegant way for him to tell this story and kind of a bigger picture at the same time, because I'm sure for somebody that lives an abduction experience, um, that is something very personal, and I'm sure it would be really hard to come to terms with, and especially on the level of being able to put together a documentary about it. That would take a lot of charisma and spirit to do.
Look, when you do a documentary on something as personable and as unbelievable as alien abduction, you're really putting your entire life on the line going public like that. You really are. And I commend anybody who has the strength to do that. You
Yeah,
know, I've been pretty open with what I've experienced personally on this show, but I do worry about my children. What are their people saying? Their friends' families, their bosses. When my dad's a little bit of a weirdo. You know what I'm saying?
there is the stigma, and I mean, it is changing, but there's a heavy one that comes with such an up and close and personal experiences such as this, especially when it could be something really, intimate or, potentially personally devastating. There's a ton of PTSD involved with this, and I think it's obvious for anyone that's really gone through it. And so to watch John Yost in his film expressing his experiences and talking with Whitley Strieber, obviously was a lot of therapy for him because he got through the film. And then he wove other people's experiences that he had come across and their stories. And so there was a lot of people that kind of found the strength to come together for this documentary. But I have to say, really, really well done. And if you're interested in the topic, I think this definitely is a great introduction to it in a way that makes it very believable and realistic to someone that may be a little unsure of how they want to feel about this topic.
Well, we should let our audience know too that on July 7th we have John Yost coming on the show. He's,
Fantastic.
yeah, he's tentatively agreed to come on that night, and you know what? It's one of those things where we as a show are very privileged to have a lot of experiencers on here. This is the direction that we like. We want to hear those firsthand encounters. Hey, they may be anecdotal, but for the majority of people out there, they want to hear what people are experiencing.
Yeah.
Hey, there's a lot of critics to the anecdotal evidence, that's for sure. But for the most of us, we want to hear about that spooky story.
Yeah,
About
Dave, you do, and you gave me a safe and fun platform to tell my family's story. So, this is a great place for experiencers to come and hear other people talk and feel comfortable at some point to maybe come and talk about it themselves, because that's what it was for me. And so the fact that you're going to have Mr. Yost on is so exciting because his story is amazing. Amazing. Quite like your own first-hand experience for a lifetime. I think that's incredible.
well, and you know what? I think we're going to see a lot more people come out in the limelight regarding their experiences, and I really hope in my hope of this all is we got about 90 seconds before we got to head over to news. But Tim, my real hope is this. I really hope that we don't see all of these former Hollywood stars, these DE list stars going all the way down to the letter Z, not Z, Z, okay? And all of a sudden, much like they did with the Hollywood Haunting show, where all of these actors and actresses that have been out of the business for 15, 20 years coming back on camera to say, I lived in a haunted house in the Hollywood Hills, or
Right.
back. I'm tired of that. And these are real experiences that people are having, and we got to make sure that the Hollywood types don't take advantage of these people,
Don't
because
glamorize it. Yeah.
it's not fun. Even if you're having the good aliens come around, It's not fun when you lose control and you have no recollection of what happened. You only got a couple of snippets, and that's what you're going by. And it sucks, man. It sucks. So the fact that anybody is brave enough to tell their story about ET abduction and how it's affected them, how they live, how they work, how they get paranoid, like you said, PTSD on daily, going to bed gives people PTSD. I mean, I don't
Yeah.
even know how to do it.